really trust your gut. If something inherently feels not right about where you are, just think, why is this not sitting right with you? Trust your instinct. Don't look back in 10, 20, or 40 years thinking, I should have given it a go at very least.
Hello, my fellow class listeners. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Service-Based Business Success with Class. Today, I have the privilege and honor of speaking to Damian Sheridan. He is the CEO and founder of Scale. It is an event company that focuses on the short-term rental space. So we really get into the weeds of what it takes to produce an event like this, a little bit of the background work that goes into it, of how he really took a leap and just put a deposit on a venue with having no background in running events, and how it's now turned into and scaled, no pun intended, to a very successful company with having about multiple events throughout the year in locations like Dubai, Barcelona, London, and France, and Italy. So it's a really an international group. So people fly in for these events who want to learn more about short-term rentals. So think of Airbnb and VRBO. And if you're a property manager, this is an excellent event for you to attend. So some light housekeeping. I'm actually going to be going to Colombia, and more specifically Medellin, Colombia. So I may be out of tune for a little bit. I'm going to be working as a digital nomad. Hopefully I have a special guest going to be interviewing there. And in other news, my book is still out, Service Business Mastery. You can find it on Amazon. Just type in Service Business Mastery, and the author is Steve Class. Please pick up a copy for 99 cents and leave a review. It would mean the world to me. And as always, if you can like and subscribe to this podcast and give us a 5-star review, the algorithms work that way where it's really going to kick us up on the notch. The more people can listen to the show, the greater impact that I hope to have with other entrepreneurs, and I would really appreciate it. That's all I have for you guys today. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. I did that out of sequence here to all the Success with Class listeners. I'm excited to be joined today by Damian Sheridan, the founder and owner of Scale. This gentleman I've been following for quite some time. He probably hasn't known I've been following him, but I've been paying attention to his posts on LinkedIn, seeing all the events that he's hosting around the world. And as a former event producer back in my event days, I'm blown away by the level of service that he's giving back to the property management, vacation management, rental owner side. So I was like, hey, you know what? I want to reach out to this gentleman. I'm sure he's got a really cool origin story, and I'm sure he's going to have a really great insights for your business owners out there of how he really started from relatively nothing for Scale's a relatively new business to a very, very successful company now that's doing how many events now, Damian, across the globe per year?
Thank you for that amazing intro. We have eight events, 8 conferences in
8 events. And by the way, these events aren't like in your sister's backyard. These are in Dubai, they're in Barcelona, they're in Marbella. One had one in Miami. So this is worldwide, international, where people fly into this kind of stuff, which to me is amazing. That gets my pulse rate up just thinking about all the excitement, because I love to travel. So I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. This means a lot to myself and my listeners. I'm excited to learn more about your past and Scale in general. So thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for that, Steve. Really appreciate the intro and the opportunity to be here. Real honor to hear that you've been tracking our journey for the last while. Always nice to know that the message gets out there beyond our immediate network. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. So I always love to start back from the beginning of an entrepreneurship journey, because there's a lot of people out there who are also just getting started as well who are listening. So I assume you didn't wake up out of bed and was like this amazing 7-figure entrepreneur, and it took you just 30 days and you have a resounding success. I have a feeling that you went through a couple of roller coaster rides in your life. So take me back a little bit. Have you always been a business owner, or did you work for corporate America, corporate UK for a bit beforehand? And let's learn a little bit more about yourself.
I certainly did work in the corporate world. Yeah. I think like many people in the short-term rental industry, I did not fall into this overnight. I worked in London for many years in the business travel field or corporate travel industry. I worked in sales, commuting every day for up to 3 hours a day, and in a job that I really did not like a lot. So I really, I think as for a lot of people, there was a day when I just realized this isn't for me, and actually it was was very, and this is, I very rarely share this story, but on a train journey back home one day, I heard somebody say to their friends, "Wow, you'd really need to love your job in order to do this commute every day." Which made me think, "Oh my goodness, I do not love my job. I need to be thinking about something else." So that was a really little catalyst to doing something else. I had been working on some websites for our corporate travel agency that we were working for, and that kind of started my thinking in terms of SEO, search engine optimization, and how that all worked. How some websites ranked higher than others, or ranked at all in their online presence. And I started to get curious about that and work on those within my job at the time. Um, Came to a point though in that job when I'd had enough. I suffered from burnout and I just couldn't do it anymore. So effectively, I just quit, knowing I had nothing to go to. I had a baby on the way as well. Actually, no, sorry, no, timeline is slightly incorrect there. It was a couple of years before a child was on route, but it was just something I thought I can't do this anymore. I need to do something for myself. My mother has always said I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I don't actually remember this as a youngster. So I had a property in the south of Spain, which I rented out for since early 2002 or so. And I thought, look, let's try and learn something here. How does SEO work in terms of vacation rentals or holiday rentals at the time, as we called it commonly in Europe? And really just one thing led to another. And I took time out, probably about a year or so, into learning the intricacies of SEO, search engine optimization.
Now you mentioned 2002. This predates Airbnb significantly.
Oh, yeah, exactly. A whole different world. And as
Yeah.
I say to a lot of people, this is a time when I was promoting my own business. I say business, a small holiday rental property on using print advertising, like flyers in
I
local
love it.
shops and things. A totally different world. So, but at the time it was working quite well. I began most of the year was booked out, but I really wanted to learn that world of search engines and how things worked. Now, that was a very different era. You could manipulate systems very easily in those days. Totally changed now, and for the better. So I started then, really probably about 10 years or so ago, working with a few property managers, or those who had quite a few properties, mostly in Europe. And then really fast forward about 6 or 7 years to the end, about 2018, when several of those clients were asking me, "Hey, can you help us with our branding? Can you help us with our social media?"
So all the while, though, are you still having this corporate job? Like,
Oh
and this
no,
is just a
sorry,
side hustle?
no, I quit that a long time ago, probably about a month
Okay.
or so after that train journey that I mentioned. So,
And
well,
I'll stop you there. So it's scary how similar we are because I worked in corporate travel for many years. I worked for Ovation Travel, and then later it got acquired by American Express Global Travel. And I had the same horrific commute. I was in New York City, and it would be an hour and a half each way to riding a bus, a train, a ferry, because I lived in Staten Island. And I had the very same situation of someone approaching me and saying, wow, like, this is, he didn't say quite in the same manner. He was more of like, oh, we're in this together, huh? Just an hour and 40 minutes, just another 30 years to go. That scared the shit out of me. I'm like, the hell with that. I was 25 years old at the time. I'm like, that's not going to happen for me. But I'm glad that you took the leap. I ended up leaving to another job, but you took the leap and quit. Now you quit with the side income, I assume, became your primary source of income. So you didn't go like blind into it with no income, thankfully.
well, it became a side income, but it was a very low side income. I have to say, that the SEO strategist or consultancy, it was a very slow grower in those days. It wasn't especially a thing. So no, I mean, it was a risk because for a few years, I really was not earning a huge amount, but the priority for me was to actually do something for myself and just find a direction, find a focus for myself. And SEO was that thing. I enjoy it. I enjoyed seeing how to change things up with a website and how and that ultimate effect on ranking on search engines and revenue for my clients. So that really took me up into by 2018 or so. when, yeah, as mentioned before, some of my clients were asking me about things like social media marketing and yeah, branding and various things that I had no idea about. And I would honestly said to them, I do not know. I cannot help you with that. But I know some people who can help you with that. I would refer people to my clients to these people. But it made me think there's an opportunity here to bring all of these people together. How, I didn't know at that point, whether it was as part of a community online, part of an event, but just a way for the many properties that managers out there to really get a better handle of of how they can really control their own booking, their own business. Because OTAs were really starting to take over at that point. You mentioned Airbnb, and in Europe we have Booking.com, which is gaining pace in the US, Verbo, etc. So it was a time when those companies were starting to, I don't want to say control the market, but get a really strong foothold on the market, and to the point that some property managers really thought, let's regain a bit of control back in our business. So this idea just was rolling around in my head in terms of a possible event to bring some people together. And then in 2019, again, just possibly a little impulsively, I went around London for a day to find a venue for to do a possible conference, and put down some money without even thinking about it. Spent the next 6 months worrying about it. Uh, Nobody knew me. You talk about the journey. Nobody knew me. Nobody knew about the potential of an event specific to direct bookings, and that was the whole focus. What's now called the Book Direct Show. But it was a one-off, one-day conference dedicated to various direct booking strategies and ways that we can just help diversify our own business and ultimately reduce that reliance that many of us have on Airbnb booking, etc.
So when you put down this deposit, yeah, so I assume it was several £1,000s. I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
And you were relatively unknown in the industry. What was the feelings in your head? Like, I'm sure it was a little bit of apprehension of like, wow, I really need to get this together. This is my one-shot pony here, because I'm sure you couldn't do 10 events that were a failure. Like, you didn't have deep wallets here. It wasn't like you had unlimited funding. And what kind of strategies did you implement when you first got this event of like outreach to try to make sure people actually showed up?
Well, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I had very little strategy. I did really not know how
Great.
to get the message out there.
You jump and you put on the parachute as you go, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I knew there was an idea there, and from everyone that I'd spoken to, they all agreed this was a great idea. It was something niche. It was something that was necessary, but there was I had no direction. I never had any marketing background, as yeah, the traditional marketing background. Apart from the SEO that I could work on, that I did manage to bring a lot of organic referrals online. It was very difficult, Steve. I really had very little idea, apart from the network that I had created on LinkedIn primarily, where I still do most of my engagement online. It was really just a little bit of that day by day.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't a huge event. The first one was just before COVID, literally a few weeks before COVID and international lockdowns happened. So it was about 100 people that we had, but it was a really great success. It was a good starting point, and the feedback was unanimously positive. So it really made me think there's something in this, and let's keep on going. Now, at a time when it wasn't easy to keep on going because you couldn't, there was no events possible.
Right. So did you find that disheartening that you had a great successful event and then lockdowns, a full year of no in-person gatherings? I'm sure at that point you had to start doing some brainstorming sessions of like, okay, how am I going to keep this train going here?
Absolutely. And well, at the same time, my SEO consultancy really hit rock bottom during the start of COVID as well, because one of the first budgets to go for a lot of these companies was their online marketing. So it was a very difficult time. But I inherently believe that there was something in events, and that we would have ultimately come back to a point whereby we could meet again. Even though the world had shut down, when I felt there was a future here. We did another online conference about 6 months later, and there was just, again, such overwhelmingly positive feedback that people needed and wanted these strategies to drive more direct bookings. I just knew there was going to be a future in this, and just held out for as long as financially possible over that time. Two young kids as well had entered school too, so which makes things, the risk factor is a lot higher. But I just, yeah, there was something in me that believed that let's keep on going here.
So you had that I'm not going to quit mentality. It wasn't like you're going to do, this event was great, and now I guess let me just double down on SEO and then forget about the events. You knew that there was something there, that there was some real value that you really wanted to expose to the greater market. Because I do agree, in that specific niche, I mean, there's a few property management conferences out there, but they cater to like a huge wide range of audiences, and you guys are very, very specific in who your target market is.
Yes.
So once you have a couple of these virtual events, and I know coming from the event industry that there's a lot of work on the behind the scenes to kind of get stuff up and running. Were you alone at this point and just had a couple of 1099 or subcontractors helping out? When did you start really saying, okay, I need help to really get this rocking?
Pretty much the second the first conference had finished. It's very difficult, and it's a very lonely journey putting this on, especially when you take on the financial risk.
Of course. And just general feedback of just working with your teammates of what do you think of this idea? What if we brought this person in? And
yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And so the first conference, in terms of sponsorship, and that's where a lot of the revenue obviously comes from. We had two or three sponsors involved, not many, but they took a chance on me as well. And I'll always do a big shout out to a company called iPrac with Chris Moore, and another company called Zivu. They're both based in the UK and France, and they took a risk on that. I'm not sure how much ROI they necessarily got from it, but they were great, and that gave me the confidence to know that, hey, if there's a company, at least one company willing to get involved in this, there's a future in this. There are others in the future. So the online event, which actually requires just as much work, it's a staggering amount of work that goes into an online.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought. You would think that, okay, I don't have to worry about the venue and getting food and beverage involved. You think it would be easier, but
no, not necessarily. No, because you have some that go live at a certain time as well over a couple of days. You need the technology. So no, in actual fact, I had two people helping me with that. So that was a pretty tough one, actually. That was in September 2020. That was our second book direct show. And then things, slowly started to open up. Probably the following year, the back end of the following year, we had our first proper live book direct show in London in 2021, September 2021. And again, it was because we were just coming out of that difficult period. Again, it was about 100 people or so we had at that event. But again, we had a lot more sponsors. They made about 10 sponsors or so at that event, sponsors and exhibitors. And then really, the ball started rolling with people getting back out there, but also with the need and want for it to connect, in person. Well, I think we were all pretty much zoomed out at that point, and we wanted.
And I would say there's always going to be, I think the hybrid model is here to stay, so to speak. And I think with the advancement of AI and technology, it's not going to be going away. But I really do believe that there's always going to be a desperate need for live events and live interaction, that human-to-human connection. Until there comes a point where you just put on some goggles and you're matrixed into another universe. Until the technology is that good, you're always going to want to have that engagement with shaking someone's hand and meeting people. And it leads the way for spontaneous behavior where you might not, someone might say, oh, by the way, did you meet John? He's in the corner there. He does this, this, and this. And they have the introduction there. Absolutely. Where it doesn't necessarily happen in a Zoom or a live event.
No. And what you mentioned there is absolutely a core part of what we'll go on to speak about, as I'm sure, the scale events. The networking element at these events is just so, it's such a huge part of the experience. We put in a lot of time to curate content, with what we believe, and we get a lot of amazing feedback as well, is in terms of the best content in the vacation rental industry. We take a lot of time out to stalk potential speakers and and make sure they're a right fit for our audience. But whatever, as much work as you put into this, the level of networking and people wanting to the conversations that people have at these events are probably the most important part of the experience. And this is something we've learned in the last couple of years, and we want to try and kind of create just that environment where people can really just enjoy and make the most out of that time with people, like-minded people who want to grow, and people who are in the short-term rental industry, professionals, as is part of the scale concept, and just really just to learn from each other and make suggestions and know that we're not alone. It's a lonely process, and this STR world, and just to know that we're, we have the same pain points, and we have the same opportunities. And I think in Europe, perhaps we might be a little bit better at collaborating and sharing information, maybe, than our American cousins.
It tends to be very true. I think that Europe, as a generality, has this collaboration mythology of like sharing information, where the United States tends to be a little bit more competitive and individualistic, right? So that they want to be, not that we're not sharing information, but it's almost like guarded secrets. Like, this worked for me, I don't want to give the competitive edge to this other company that takes over my region. And I think that's a starvation mentality. Personally, I think that there's plenty of fish in the sea, and we all bring each other up. So I'm glad that you have that mentality there. As far as the sharing aspect, as a former property manager and a new business owner, I think we're very much to what you've alluded to, that we're alone on an island a lot of times. We're the owner of the company, and we have our team around us, but we don't really have the opportunity to bounce high-level ideas off of like-minded individuals. So when you have that, and I encourage anyone who's an entrepreneur in general to get in the room with people who are in the same industry as you and just learn and just ask questions, give back, provide as much value as humanly possible. Say, hey, this worked for me when I did these updates to this home to get more guest bookings. What worked for you? Oh, that's great. I never thought of that. And you get like this snowball effect of learning that can cascade into the greater field. I mean, I think that's really what you guys are about too, is making it so you can set the room up to have those types of engaging conversations. And so I'm excited to learn how you went from being a sole entrepreneur now. I think the journey is now headed to, you mentioned you were on a roll a little bit now with the events. So at what point did you brand to scale, let's say? Because I know that you also have another business partner as well.
Yes. So one thing that I had realized when going to many conferences throughout Europe was that when speaking to professional property managers, and when I say professional, I probably mean more just full-time, those who they're not just doing it as a side hustle. They may have 10, 20 plus properties. They're in it all day, every day, and it's their full-time job. What I found was not overriding, but some feedback about some of the more generic vacation rental events was that the networking experience wasn't quite what they expected or needed. And they primarily wanted to be amongst similar sized companies, and didn't, for example, a company who had 50 properties, they didn't necessarily want to be sitting beside somebody who's renting out a room on Airbnb and be effectively stuck beside them for a whole day and not getting that networking value from the event. So this was kind of in about 2021 when I just it was 2021. I thought, is there something here whereby we could create an event which is specifically for the professionals in our industry, and those who potentially would want to be at an event which is exclusively for that kind of demographic. So I happened to, at one of those events, I happened to meet the co-founder of the Scale show, called Gianpaolo Vairo, Italian guy based in Barcelona. And we had a similar feeling about this. So we thought, we think there's something in this. So we met with some property managers, invited them down to Marbella, and we had some drinks, some food, and a night out. But we just wanted to kind of ask them, do you think there's something in this? Because it hasn't been done before in the short-term rental industry. Event specific and exclusive. No one less than, actually it was a minimum of 50 properties we had for our first show. No one less than a certain amount of units, can only get in the room, no vendor tickets, only the sponsors. Would you get value out of this? Again, overwhelmingly, yes, you need to do this, was the response. So we gave it a go, Steve. So we, as with everything, you never know how it's going to go. We were on the offensive, just to try and persuade a lot of our sponsors and potential exhibitors why you need to be here. You're going to have the best attendees in front of you. When I say best, I say those who, if you make a deal with them, it's going to be quite an exclusive one, and one or two of these deals, and you've made your ROI on the whole show. So, but more importantly, about the experience for the attendee. So again, we just thought, let's do it. Let's put some money down on a venue, which we did, the World Trade Center in Barcelona, and we gave ourselves 4 months. Wasn't long. As you'll know, Steve, like generally, I'd say 4 months is a minimum you'd be looking at to arrange a conference. Very minimum.
That's a tight timeline. You gave yourself some pressure. Yeah.
So we really did. So we start in January. I can't believe it was just last year, 2022. We said, okay, let's do it. We launched the website. We started speaking to speakers, sponsors, and we said, let's give it a go. So yeah, that was a crazy few months. I can hardly remember anything of those few months, but we managed to pull it off. We had about 40 or so, 30, 40 sponsors there, but more importantly, we had about 150 attendees. Now that won't sound like a lot to some of your listeners here. Actually, no, it was probably closer to 200. But they were all managing over 50 units in the short-term rental industry. Now, so
these are industry. If you're managing 50 units, it's a serious business.
It really
you're not
is.
Doing it alone. Yeah, it's not a hobby. To your point,
it's certainly not. Yeah, I mean, and there are many in the industry who will manage 10 or 20, and that's a busy business. But when you go to that level, it gets extremely busy, and you have teams, and you're utilizing all kinds of technology, software. So so we had a 2-day show in May 2022, and again it just went off. The feedback was like 100% positive from both sides, from attendees and from sponsors. I mentioned before that the networking element, that was the overriding feedback that we one-off thing that worked really well. It's just like off the scale, networking on drugs. And people really, really enjoyed it. So we thought, okay, we've got something here. We've got something that could work not just on an annual basis, but something that could work in different countries. So again, just led to ideas and conversations with people. Some people said to us, hey, would you be interested in doing a scale show in France, in Italy, for example? We explored those options, and we went, why not? Why not? Yeah. And it's the conversations you mentioned a moment ago. It's just those simple conversations you can have. We had a conversation with somebody at this same event in 2022 who said, would you consider bringing this to South Africa? Now at the time we were like, oh my goodness, we've done one. Give us a moment.
Yeah. What's the logistic feed here? Yeah.
Right. But we're having a show in South Africa in 3 months' time. And again with Dubai as well, the conversation about Dubai. We thought, might be tricky. We don't know the Dubai market at all. We don't know how it might be culturally different. Again, we're doing it next year. So it's these conversations and how that can develop into real experiences that are gonna happen.
Now, what would you say is the secret sauce for a fantastic event? Like, what is it that in your experience really gives the guests a takeaway of like, I'm so happy I came to this. I learned so much. Is there a secret sauce to it? Is it that you have to have a certain time limits for like workshops versus networking? What have you learned in these past couple of years?
Yeah, there are a couple of things where we see we set ourselves apart. So from day one, we have always said to our sponsors, there's no guaranteed speaking. This is not a pay-to-play model. And we have lost potential sponsorship because of this. But we do not, if someone comes on, we say, that's great, and we will support you, and we will give you all the exposure that we can. But this is not going to come with a guaranteed speaking opportunity where you can make a sales pitch. Because we knew that there are enough conferences and events in our industry where you go and half of the sessions will be effectively sales pitches, which are just really dull. They're not good content. They're not a good learning experience to create a viable, ongoing, successful conference. So that was the first thing we were agreed on from minute one. No sales pitches. We effectively decide who are going to be the speakers. As I said, we stalk so many people, they will have no idea. We also we ask all attendees at the point of registering for a ticket, what is it you want to learn about? And we hold back about 50% of our sessions and try to allocate the best speaker that we have in our network for that particular topic, according to the most popular topics that are registered. So we really try to make sure that we cater properly for the interests of all of our attendees.
And I really love that you guys don't do a paid sponsorship. And a lot of people don't really, if they go to a big event, they don't realize that those people might have spent 15, 20,000 pounds to be the speaker on there just to sell their widget or their product. And they're not there because they want to deliver a value-added message. So I mean, and that's going to separate the people who are just after the money versus people who are really hospitable and service bound. Because I mean, that's essentially the industry we're all in here. We're in hospitality at scale.
Yes.
So no pun intended with using scale, but yeah.
There's a lot of puns out there. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is something we agreed on from the very start, in that the attendee was the priority. I've spoken about the sponsors quite a bit, but at the end of the day, without the attendee having an amazing time over 1, 2, or 3 days, it's got no future in it. People won't come back. You won't build a great reputation. So we had that at the heart of our core values. So yeah, that was probably one of the main things that has really driven us forward, I think, very positively. And yeah, I probably, in answer to your question, that's probably the main thing. So no sales pitches, and really bringing people together who are like-minded. So with the Scale show, with the Book Direct show,
you're building a tribe, essentially. You're building a tribe of like-minded individuals that don't always have the opportunity to always connect on a not nowhere near on a daily basis, but you get them in the room together.
Yeah. So we spoke about the loneliness of this of any entrepreneurial
Very true.
kind of role. But in the short-term rental industry, we're so busy dealing with guests, with technology, with everything that comes with being a property manager. It's very hard sometimes. We're tapping away all day long, and then we look up and it's 6 o'clock, and it's it's time for dinner or time to get the kids into the bath or whatever. So it's really difficult. So
what would you say you've learned during these conferences from an attendee or another sponsor that you can share to some of our listeners that was more, not I wouldn't necessarily say an aha moment, but became clarity of, oh, I never thought of that. That's something that someone could take away with. That is a unique perspective. I'm putting you on the spot here. So,
oh my goodness, I find it really hard to just focus on one. One of the attendees a day after our first show, it wasn't so much about one particular takeaway that they had about content, but they just mentioned the just being amongst like-minded people, and they said it was the first time they'd ever experienced that. Didn't mention the content actually, so this is almost an opposite to your question. So I've not answered this at all, but it was just the validity of the experience, and of just being amongst somebody who you want to talk to, who you can learn from, or you can pass on a little bit of information, and effectively just talking to them for 10 minutes, an hour, just a value in that. I think that was a real aha moment for me, thinking it's the value of the experience, not necessarily sitting, watching the presentations or, the drinks in the evening or whatever. It's just the overall experience of being amongst like-minded people.
Now, I'm sure you're not a solo entrepreneur anymore. I know that you just mentioned your business partner at Scale. What is, let's take a little peek behind the curtain. What is the back-end operations like? Like, how many people does it take in your business to produce these events now to make sure that they're a smashing success?
So we've got about 4 people working with us now. We have a new community coming on, an online community starting next month. We'll have somebody taking care of that. But for the average show that we do, we have about 3 or 4 people working behind the scenes on logistics, marketing, website, create development, and maintenance. So yeah, about maybe four people or so behind the scenes, and then on the day of the show, or the day preceding, and over the course of the show, probably between 10 and 12 people, as part of the team.
It's always a Herculean effort. It's never easy,
It
even in
really
spite of
is.
the teammates that you have.
And
It always is.
one of the things I found hardest, I mentioned that the first show I did was on my own, but just to delegate things, I have it's by far my biggest weakness. Being able to say to somebody else, "Okay, you roll with that. I'm going to
I
trust.
trust your judgment.
I
Yep.
trust you to deal with it. Yeah, it's over to you now, and I'm gonna like turn the other way. I have to trust you. I have to because I don't have the time to do this. To do that for the first few months, I was dreadful. I was awful.
Well, also, that's your baby, man. This is something that you created. So, and believe me, not alone. I suffer from this. Many entrepreneurs have this, where it's just like, I just need to step away because I know if I get into it, I'm gonna my time should be focused on high level problem solving, and it's gonna muddy the waters if I get involved in more of the micro decision that's to be made. So, if you hire right and you trust your employees and they understand the vision of your company, then there's not really much you have to worry about, because if they have those values of what scale is about in this instance, as long as you have the right person sitting in that role, that they're going to fulfill that. From my perspective,
I absolutely agree. Yeah, and if we take people on to help on a part-time basis or whatever, we need to know that they're a good egg. They're not going to bring any toxicity into the company
absolutely.
proceedings, because the last thing I or any of us want is to be playing games and to be have any politics involved. So we really do think hard about who is the best person to get involved, and we're going to announce somebody in the next couple of weeks who's going to be joining us. But we're mostly women, in fact, in our team. So we feel that drives a right balance between us all.
It's in the hospitality world. Usually, it's very much women led. I've worked in travel. I've worked in hotels, and if you're a guy, either you're the gay guy, or if you're the rare straight guy, it's like oh, okay, we got this guy. I remember in corporate travel, I think I was one of the only straight guys in the
Me
office.
too. I remember that in my day as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why that
so
is necessary in corporate travel, but
hey.
yeah.
It is funny, man. So I assume that you guys are doing 8 events now. What's the future of scale, and what's the future for Damian now at this point? Like, do you want to just kind of expand this out and do more events, or do you want to do bigger events? Like, what have you seen as the trend?
Not bigger, no. We do. Although, well, that said, we have now got an additional brand called the Scale Open. So we've got our Scale Show and our Scale Open. The final day of all of our shows is called the Scale Open, and that is open to the whole community and not just those who've got 50 or 20 properties, depending on the location. So that will get bigger for sure, because it's open to all, but for those who really want to grow, and not necessarily those who've got 1 or 2 properties and they're happy with that. So, but with the Scale Show, with our main Scale Show brand, nope, it's not about getting bigger, because there's a finite amount of property managers out there who have got a certain number of properties, be it 20 plus. But something we really want to keep is the intimate nature of our events, and this is something that we get positive feedback about, is that you can meet the same people over the course of 2 or 3 days, and you can have really worthwhile conversations, and not just get lost in a sea of 1,000, 2,000 people. We don't want that. That's not part of the experience at all. We don't need for this to get bigger, but better for sure. And we're always improving. We always want the content to be just the top notch and relevant for a particular country. So we have France, we have Italy. Those shows are both exclusive to those particular languages. And we try to ensure that all of the content is specific to that country. So the data, the market insights is relevant to France, Italy, South Africa, Dubai, etc.
We're gonna get you in the United States soon, I promise.
It's on the radar. Let's see.
Yeah, I know. The United States is we had an offline discussion about how expensive it is to have an event here. It's they don't make it easy for sure.
I did one book direction in Miami, and that was
yeah.
But, enjoyable nonetheless.
So no, I appreciate that clear vision of the future of just doing more but better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's always a good takeaway there.
Yeah.
And all right, so now we're getting to the point of the show. I ask this question of every entrepreneur that comes on. I want to rewind the clock to a younger Damian who's potentially in his early 20s, who maybe just got into the corporate workflow of this travel industry. What would you tell that young gentleman who is seeking advice, who is maybe a little bit unsure of themselves, who's about to quit their job to go into something else? And think of it as a greater terms of other entrepreneurs who are in that, or soon to be entrepreneurs who are in that position. What advice would you espouse?
Wow, I'm really trying to think
We're going deep, brother.
what I
Yeah.
was like in my early 20s. I was traveling around the world for several years at that point, so I was a very different person, but I was an independent person nonetheless. And I think really to trust your gut, whether if there's something inherently feels not right about where you are, be it in a job, be it with a partner, with a whatever. Wherever you are in that journey, just think, well, why is this not sitting right with you? We've spoken about our lives in the corporate world, and I'm glad that I did make a move. What I regret not doing it sooner. But that said, I think just trust your instinct. If don't regret, don't look back in 5, 10, 20, or 40 years thinking, I should have done that.
You should have taken that leap.
I should have given it a go at very least.
Yeah, especially when you're in your early 20s, before you're married and you have children and you have low risk, so to speak, on the responsibility scale. That's the time to be as adventurous and as willing to take chances as humanly possible. Because believe me, if we're both in the same shoes, we have 2 kids, it becomes significantly more challenging to take that leap if you have a mortgage and you have bills and all these other responsibilities that go with it. Yeah. So now's the time, not tomorrow, not yesterday. Now's the time to take action. So I appreciate that advice, man.
Yeah.
Damian, I really, really enjoyed having you on the show. This has been great to learn more about yourself, learn more about scale. If someone who is listening wants to attend one of these amazing events, where can they find out more about you?
Probably the easiest just to go onto the Scale Show website. So it's scalerentals.show. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. If you just search Damian Sheridan, you should be able to see a picture of me. And please do connect or follow, and we can. I'm always there. I'm always open to conversations. So it'd be great to connect with your followers too.
And is there any specific need that you might have right now that someone can help you out with? I always like to give a shout out to the greater community.
Yeah, absolutely. We are always looking for more female speakers at our shows. Always. We find that it's every show we try to get the message out there. We're looking for more women and more people coming from diverse backgrounds to please put their hand up and let's have a conversation. So if you or any of your listeners can share this message, or even if they are thinking, I think I could do that. I think I've got some expertise here. Always looking for more women to speak at our show. We want, as you said, women are so prevalent in the hospitality industry. They need to be part of the experience on stage. So always interested in that.
Absolutely, man. I really, really appreciate this. Looking forward to meeting you in person in May. This is going to be great. For those of you who are listening, I am going to actually be a speaker at Scale in upcoming May 14th through the 16th. So if it's in Barcelona, which was one of my favorite cities in the world. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you in person, shaking your hand, giving you a hug. So this should be fun.
Looking forward to it, Steve. Yeah, we should be. It's going to be a great show. Really excited to have you there.
Good stuff, man. All right. Have a great holiday, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks very much, Steve. See you soon.